Hello, hello, hello. All right, how are we doing? How are we sounding? I'm like getting some weird mic crackling, I think. Or I was earlier. I don't know if I still am now. Um but just let me know, I guess. Um Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of the Girl Next Door podcast. I'm your host Sean, aka your number one source of fashionably late but occasionally great pop culture takes. Today we are embracing embracing Tumblr cringe, um, and revisiting the trauma of being a Lana Del Rey stan in 2022 and the amount the amount of patience this last decade has required from all of us. Before I get into it, I just wanted to let y'all know I stream every single episode of this on Twitch at twitch.tv/Girl podcast on Mondays, Thursdays, and sometimes Fridays at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Feel free to follow, come on through on those nights, join the chat, and let's just talk. Hi, I'm back after a while. Also, happy Pride Month. Happy Pride Month, Shooky. How are you? I know it has been a bit, but I'm glad to see you back. We're doing kind of a little bit of a weird one tonight, or maybe not super weird. I mean, I feel like I've talked about like a lot of stuff, and I on this channel at this point, and I don't really have that much of a theme. Overall, I'm trying to do like a little bit more music related stuff just because like that's kind of it feels like that's the thing I'm the most qualified to talk about. At least like in my own mind, in my own silly little brain. Um at the very least I can talk about being a stan, whether they deserve me standing them or not. And I just for some backstory, I had a completely different idea for stream, admittedly, earlier this week. Um, but then I woke up on Monday, and I opened up Twitter, because I hate myself in the morning and decide to scroll through my feed all the time, and basically I saw that like, oh, happy 8 years of ultraviolence. This was like on Monday, June 13th, and it's like it's 8 years of the album being out, and I was like, oh shit. Well, first of all, I absolutely have to stream this tonight, and second, holy shit. 8 years. I feel fucking old because I was still in high school when this album came out. I was like, this came out in like technically the summer between my junior and senior year of high school, to just sort of date myself a little bit, I guess. And I was just like, oh, like this was such like a formative for me anyway. I'd feel like for like a lot of edgy like Tumblr twinks, this is like very much a formative record for for our personality types, at least like for like the next several months following its release. For me it was like almost the entire year, or like the remainder of 2014. I was very annoying and I was very depressed, and you know, which came first, me being clinically depressed, or this album coming out and making me clinically depressed? Who can really say? No, I mean, if you've watched my mental health stream, you know that I've that the egg in this case became before the chicken. Um, I am doing okay, but my family problems are going through the roof. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I'm hoping you're okay, bestie, and I'm hoping things improve. I'm sorry to hear that though. But I'm hoping I can bring like at least like a little bit of joy, question mark, I guess, this evening as we just talk about an album that's 8 years old. I feel very decrepit saying that, but I know that like, I mean, like, I'm 25 and like, you know, it's obviously it's, you know, I'm not like old. um but it is interesting to think of like almost a decade going by at this point. Jesus. um but so to bring you back to actually no, you know, I'll finish the first story and then I will like get into like ultraviolence. So I saw on Monday that I was turning 8 years old. I was like, holy shit, I got streaming this tonight. And then in case anybody was wondering where I was, or if anybody even noticed I was gone, I did not have water on Monday and Tuesday. Everything's good now. It turned out to be, an issue that's like not super hard to fix. Um, but oh wait, was it Monday and Tuesday or is it Sunday and Monday? This week is so weird to me. I'm pretty sure it was like Sunday, Monday, actually, now that I think about it. But anyway, I was too distracted by that whole thing. I can't believe I already fucked up my own story. Like that was my excuse to not stream on Monday. My very, very lame excuse. I was just like super distracted by the whole thing. Everything's good now. I've had the rest of the week has gone pretty swimmingly, I guess. But it was just like a very stressful start. I was like, I was so focused on like, oh my gosh, like, what am I gonna do? Like, when is like the plumber gonna get here? And everything with that, and like, even if it sorted itself out, it's like, yeah, I feel like I'm not in a good headspace to stream, so I'm streaming it later in the week. So at this point, it is 8 years and how many days? Let's do math. 8 years and 3 days, basically. Also, an idea, you should start a Discord for your community to talk and get more ideas for people who don't have certain socials. Absolutely, that is a thing that I've been looking into doing. I'm very. I hate this makes me sound like such a boomer when I say it. I'm like pretty. I feel like despite the fact that I've been on like other people's servers for a while, I still consider myself pretty new to Discord. Um, so I've been kind of like intimidated to start my own server. I've had like one in the past, but that was just like one for like close friends, and it was essentially just making it like because we weren't using Skype anymore for League, because that's the kind of person I used to be before everything changed. That's not true. I still love League. I just don't play it as much. Um, and but yeah, no, I definitely should be looking into making one for the channel. That's probably going to be my quote unquote my project for like the next week. But just a suggestion. Yeah, I mean that's a great suggestion, especially because like I understand like not everybody has um like the same socials, and it's probably easier for me to because I'm so bad at like tweeting and like updating people on Instagram. Um, like I still I still forget all the time, and it'd probably be easier for me to just like post live messages and stuff from there as well. So I'll definitely look into it. I mean, I'm not that old, but I could definitely try and help. Yeah, I'll yeah, whatever socials you have, you can just DM me after, like, if you have like Instagram or Twitter or anything, you can just like DM me after stream, and we can like maybe figure out a time to sort that out. I'm like pretty busy like overall, again, like kind of recently, so um I've been bad about doing stuff that's actually probably very important for the channel. So if I don't get back to you like immediately, I swear I'm not ignoring you. I'm just really stupid. But I appreciate the offer nonetheless. But yes, that is a thing that I was actually going to talk about that later tonight, because or talk about one of the few things I was going to talk about later. Um, I guess I should throw out now that because I didn't stream on Monday because of the whole water thing, um, this stream is going to be a little bit longer than normal, and it's going to be split into two parts. I mean, if you're watching this live on Twitch now, like, it's effectively one part. You don't have to leave or anything if you don't want to. I guess you can leave if you want, if you're like bored with me, but it's gonna be one stream for people on Twitch and people who watch the VOD back. Like, that's not gonna be an issue. But if you're on YouTube, splitting this into two parts, um, it's the way that I wanted to do it is like I still very much wanted to stream like about Ultraviolence and like the album, and talking about how I feel about it years later, and a lot of like the controversies that are around it, and why I personally think it is like still one of her, if not the most controversial um album cycle she's had in her career thus far. I wanted to talk about like all of that, but I also still wanted to do what I've been calling like the not cast, which is just like if anything that I have a hard time trying to fit into like anything I try to like fit into a specific episode that I can't really write a full script for. um oh gosh, what was I saying? Yeah, anything that I have a difficult time making like a full up dedicating a whole episode to, I guess I should say. I like to try to scoot into those. I've done a couple not casts before. I haven't been posting them on YouTube because a lot of the times they're just like I don't think that like people are going to be like interested in them. But the past couple of ones have, in my opinion, been very fun, and have been able to cover stuff into more detail that I was like expecting. And I don't know, I just feel like it'll be like on a separate playlist on the YouTube channel, in case anyone's like interested. I'm gonna start saving them just because they're like more casual, they're more laid back. I feel like I can jump from topic to topic, which is lovely for my ADHD. And I can just talk about things for like maybe 10-15 minutes that I don't have to in the back of my mind be like, oh, but like, can I really stretch this out to like an hour's worth of content or not? Who knows? I'm 12 and have protective guardians, so I have Twitch and Discord. So for I don't mean this like in I obviously don't mean this in like a mean way. I'm pretty sure Twitch has like a thing about ages on I think there's like an age thing for Twitch. I would just sort of like say like, hey, if you're under 13, like usually don't advertise that like on Twitch. So I know, obviously I know you don't mean like anything like bad by it. I'm not here like berating with that, but I just want you to know that we don't really have age chat on here because I don't want to get anybody in trouble. But yeah, with all that being said, probably gonna start the Notcast around 11, and we'll see we'll see if I actually like stay true to that or not. because like I could either run out of things immediately and then be like, oh shit, well I don't know what to do now, or I can talk about it like literally until midnight and lose track of time and not pace myself very well. Anything goes with me. I turn 13 tomorrow. Well, happy early birthday. Yeah, you can just I guess you can why did I say tomorrow? It's a few months. I don't know why either, Tricky. But anyway, I'm just gonna keep saying like, hey, let's not have age chat in chat. That's like redundant. Yeah, let's not discuss ages like in the chat. I'm gonna say if you're under 18, like, I mean, if you're under 18, I don't know that this is like the I don't know that this is like the best channel for you to be on, like, period, because I'm definitely not a family friendly streamer. I'm not trying to be gatekeepy or anything. I just, again, I don't want to get anybody in trouble. But anyway, back to me being a stupid twink on the internet. So to put you in like the headspace of oh god, was I like 16 or 17? I think, well, I guess I was 17. Oh my god. Yeah, so to put you in the mind of 17-year-old me, I had recently come out. That was like a June 9th. I did a whole stream about it. And it was like my first sort of, well, okay, it wasn't technically my first like extended stay away from home kind of deal, because like I've been to summer camp before and I'd like done school trips before, but I don't know why this specific getaway felt different. I don't know if anybody knows what Boys State is. It's like the only way I can describe it is like it's this like mock government program, that it is across the country, so I can't really speak on how the other programs do it. I can only speak on what it was like in my state. And like they housed us at like some like in-state colleges. We stayed there for like a little bit over a week, and I'm like, personally, me, I'm not interested in politics. I didn't really I didn't really care about what was going on there. I would definitely not say I'm an apolitical person, because I feel like people that kind of say that, it makes me worry about how they actually feel about certain social issues if they're going to consider themselves apolitical. But you do you. But for me, it's just like it's like I definitely did not. I would not have actively chosen to be participating in a program where like debating against against people, on like laws and just like governmental stuff and shit. That is definitely not a thing that I would volunteer for. The only reason I went was because like I was an honor student and I was there to represent my school, along with like a couple like other like classmates. They kind of just like send like the honor students or like kids who are like in student government or are interested in like leadership roles, and like that's like a thing you can throw on your resume. I was asked to go. I was like, sure, why not? And I hated the I didn't hate it. I met some really cool people there. Honestly, it was like the downtime that was usually the only parts of that I enjoyed. So I'm still friends with a couple of them to this day. But the actual activities themselves, it was like a lot of just like sitting in in these lecture halls and drafting up bills and learning about like whatever the fuck. I'm just like, I hate this. I'm so bored. I started getting like a little homesick like on like the day that the album came out, and I'm just like, as soon as all of my meetings were for the day were done, I already had like the album pre-ordered. It was like downloading like when I was like in my dorm room. I just like crawled into bed with like my laptop because I didn't have a smartphone at the time or like even an iPod. I just put my earbuds in and I just like listened to like the album and like hid away from all the responsibilities around me that day because I was just not having it. I know that like sounds really petty, but like I'm a very socially anxious person who was like participating in a program where you have to be confrontational, and I'm like, that could never be me. Like that can never be me, girl. I'm just not that kind of person, and because of that I just like I was just very exhausted. I got to have like some me time, and then I'm like, I listened to like the singles beforehand. Like I'm trying to think of what the songs that came out before the album were. I know that West Coast was the lead single. Shades of Cool came out afterwards. I absolutely love the music video for it. And then I know as a teaser track, but didn't have a video for it, Brooklyn Baby came out. I think Ultraviolence came out early as well, but the music video didn't drop until I think technically the very end of the album cycle. I could be wrong though. Like if there are any Lana historians out there that want to fact check me on it, they are 100% welcome to. Please gatekeep me. Like I might be a Born to Die stan, but I know a lot of y'all are like, you know the words to like Kill Kill or like any of like the long list of like pseudonyms and other stage names she had before Lana Del Rey. Before like I do, you could like list them off of the like top of your head. I envy your dedication to being a Lana historian. I try to do my best, but I know that I definitely have gaps here and there. So if anybody, I will not take it personally if somebody like comments like on the video or like in chat being like actually it's like, yeah, no, I actually welcome it because I'm actively very wrong on a lot of shit. but I hadn't heard anything else. I'd stayed away from the leaks because I always do. Like, I know, I'm not gonna judge people who listen to album leaks ahead of time. I understand like the temptation. I get the appeal. It just like for myself personally, I love just waiting until like 11:59 the night before, having it pre-saved on my phone, and then just being like super ready to um, just digest an entire project. The only times I won't do it if it's like if it's like a 2 hour album. I feel like albums don't have any right to be any longer than like an hour and 20 minutes in my opinion. Like that's just me. So when I think of like people that do like put out these like double projects, which is like, yes, like the idea is like, okay, well, you listen to one like separately as like a separate body of work essentially, but it's just like under a greater umbrella, like in one sitting, and then you can do like the other one in another. But as somebody who consumes music very like I need to have the full story presented to me in the order that it was like meant to be made and like meant to be listened to. I'm just like, I can't do it playlist style. I have to listen from front to back. And if that front to back is like almost 2 hours long, I'm definitely not going to be doing that as like a midnight release. But for this, the only reason why I didn't do it as a midnight release was because I had morning meetings and I had responsibilities. And even though it was summer break at this point for everybody else, for me, it was like, it felt like, honestly, like Boys State ended up feeling like summer school for me. I was so bored. I bear no ill will towards anybody involved. I very much appreciate the opportunity being given to me by my high school to like represent them and be able to put this on like a resume. I'm like, okay, cool, but like also this sucked. But yeah, and then like I just absolutely fell in love with the album. I think Cruel World is like an iconic opener, and it's like, I don't want to say this is a no skip album because there are definitely songs that are kind of like weak for me. Okay, so should I just jump in with like just like a quick mini album review, I guess, for Ultraviolence before like I talk more about like the history of it and everything, or I don't know. I feel like I should. I feel like it. I feel like this is like a good way to sort of approach it if I'm like sort of mapping out how I want tonight to go. So so my initial thoughts were very much like I love it, but like the last quarter of it was like a little bit rough. And I know that's sacrilege for people, especially like the people on like TikTok, or like even like I think honestly I think of Benito Skinner and like all of like the videos he's done that like use Money Power Glory like in their videos. I feel like they would all hate me for saying this, but like I like that song's really not for me. I feel like that like honestly that stretch of like the album for me is like kind of weak. Like let me pull up the track list right now. Feel free to open it up yourselves if you need a reminder. Some people know way better than me. Yeah, I know Money Power Glory and Fuck My Way Up to the Top. I mean, like Fuck My Way Up to the Top is still like a fun song. It's like definitely grown on me a lot. But like they're not my favorite. And then Pretty When You Cry, like it did need to grow on me for a second. And Old Money, I like Old Money, but I don't know, it's like the last portion of the album felt like a little bit weird to me, or at least like the standard edition. Because I'm a whore, I did pre-order like the deluxe edition, specifically like the iTunes one, because that's when they were doing that. That's when iTunes was still I guess iTunes is kind of still technically a thing, but like that was God, that was, I wouldn't, that's not, I'm not saying that's before streaming, because I think there were still services around then, but like there was, to my knowledge, they were pretty young. So this was sort of like how I was consuming music, was like I was either watching uploads of it like on YouTube, or like I guess listening to them, um, or I was buying them myself. Like I didn't have Spotify, I didn't have Apple Music. None of us knew what Tidal was yet at that point. I guess we would know in like about a year or two at that point. If it's 2014, when God, when did Tidal start? This is like a super unimportant, unrelated question, but now I want to know. Um, let's see. That started in. Oh, it was 2014. Oh, it was just. Oh my God, it was like this. It's gonna turn 8 this year too. Holy shit! But I don't think it was. It was. It definitely wasn't how we know it as like today, as like that kind of streaming service. But I digress. I was really only consuming music through like purchasing it, whether it was like through iTunes or whether it was like the CD. Ironically, this is still the only album that like I don't own a physical version of, like in her discography. Actually, that's not true. I don't have Paradise, like the Paradise EP. I don't have. I have like the original like standard edition for like Born to Die, on CD, but like I don't have the deluxe. I don't have the Paradise edition, and I don't have a physical copy of Ultraviolence, which I think is like, it's really funny to me because I think it is probably my favorite project of hers. But that's like it's hard to say because like I also really like Norman fucking Rockwell like a lot. Which I know people are pretty divided on, when her music started changing, when she started working with Jack Antonoff. Personally, I love all versions of Lana, to be honest. I like that I like that all of like the albums, even if like they're still quintessentially her. So I know a lot of people think that she just like never changes her sound up, but to me they all sound pretty different. The ones that sound the most similar are going to be like Born to Die and Paradise, but that's because they were like meant to be released together. And then like there are like, I know that there's some arguments that Lust for Life is like kind of grown up Born to Die, and that I think that was technically the idea anyway, but like it was still playing more with like the more singer songwriter musical veins, I guess, that she'd be continuing to expand once she started working with Jack. But I think from there, I don't know. I think Ultraviolence and Norman fucking Rockwell are really tied. But it's why it's funny that like I have everything like, but apparently my favorite, my favorite album, outside of like just owning like the original on like iTunes. And then like on top of that, oh my gosh, I do have to say, to everyone, I feel like anyone out there who feels the same pain as me, I'm calling out to you. I'm like extending our shared grief, or my shared grief with you, of not having Flipside be on the standard edition of Ultraviolence, or at the very least at like the deluxe edition. I hate that there are only like a handful of uploads of it on YouTube, and like the audio quality for a lot of them is like not great. And then one of the one that sounds like the best, to my knowledge anyway, like kind of, it like loops a tiny bit at the end, and I don't think it's supposed to. So, but anybody who was able to get, I think that was like exclusive to like the Target Deluxe Edition. I could be wrong though. It might actually be on the Urban Outfitters vinyl too, but as far as I know, that like it's only on like the Target edition. Because I got mine on iTunes. It was I have Is This Happiness, which I still love. I still love that song, but it's funny that like, honestly, the fact that I didn't know what Witch Hazel was like until that song is like a little bit embarrassing. It is like definitely a tell. Okay, so it's on. Oh wait, what the fuck? Okay, so, oh, never mind. Fuck y'all. If you have Spotify, you've had this song. You've had Flipside this entire time. Wow, I hate y'all for that. And then if it's, oh my god, if you're in Japan, you have both. You have Is This Happiness and you have Flipside. Actually, no. Okay, I did know that because when I was living overseas, I almost bought the Japanese deluxe edition of Ultraviolence. because it had flip side on it. I know that's like kind of like a I don't know if that's like a weird fan behavior thing to like admit that like I almost bought this like exclusively in Japan because I wanted one song that I didn't have that I literally could just rip off of the internet, um if I was a pirate, which I am not. um I mean, in this case I'm not like I've been bemoaning not having Flipside on Apple Music, but it's been on Spotify this entire time. What the fuck? I've been living life on hard mode, I guess. Okay, well, well, you know, I do have a family Spotify account, so maybe that's what I'm gonna be doing after stream. But but I digress. I absolutely love this album. I think that was like sort of my impressions 8 years ago from what I remember. I think now I don't have like a problem with like any of the songs. I can listen to it comfortably for like all the way through. I think the only song maybe that I don't love, it's a bonus track, so I don't know if that counts. I don't really love Florida Kilos. I think I liked Florida Kilos a lot more when I first heard it back in 2014 when I was going through the bonus tracks. Um but I hate it now. I can't stand it. I like the bridge, I guess, and like some aspects of the production, but like it's just kind of it's just obnoxious. But it does tap into like sort of like Lana's like a little bit of her older energy with like some of her songs. It's like more like playful and like nasally, I guess. I don't know how else to describe it. I don't know. It's like like maybe a little schoolgirly, but yeah, no, Florida Kilos is not for me. I hated Guns N' Roses when I first heard it, but I think because I've been re-listening to the album this past week basically non-stop because of that tweet, I think I like it now. um and like, so the original idea that I had for this stream, this is very embarrassing, but the original plan that I'd had was I was going to be like, okay, well, I need some kind of guided activity to do that isn't just me talking about ultraviolence for like ever. Um, but hang on, sorry, I got a quick here's something. Um, what was I saying? Yeah, so originally I was going to be like, okay, I'm going to like do like a tier stream for it. I don't know why I thought that would be a thing that would be feasible for me, because then I tried to do like a little bit of a test run earlier today to see how that would go, and I was just like, yeah, no, it's impossible for me to. I ended up just kind of putting everything into like a high category, and I feel like a lot of that's definitely nostalgia value and like a lot of bias, but like I don't know. It turned out to be like, this is not a very entertaining thing to stream. I'm just gonna like talk, because you don't want to see me putting a bunch of songs into like S tier, like, and then like have two songs maybe be in like C tier. Like that's not fun. And that also feels like the sign of like a fan that can't really provide like a lot of constructive criticism around someone's work, and I feel like that maybe that's like not really like engaging as a content creator to like tackle. So as far as speaking on like the quality of like somebody's work, you know, I'm probably not the most interesting person to discuss this kind of thing with, but that being said, I'm going to anyway. I think what I really love a lot about this album, and kind of just this era in general for me, and why it's my favorite, I do think a lot of it like is related to like how much of her public persona, whatever, at this point of her career was just so the narrative was being taken in so many different directions from her that this album felt like it was reclaiming that, but like not in like the way of like, I'm gonna tell you everything, I'm gonna set the story straight with you, because like she does not do that at all. She kind of just like fucks with the press a lot, on this record. It's to mixed results in like certain points. I think Fuck My Way Up to the Top is like a good example of that. Of it very much being like a jab at the critics. But I think oh my god, the story behind, okay, so I don't know if anybody else, oh okay, I know this is like the popular theory. I don't know that it's ever been explicitly confirmed that like the subject of Fuck My Way Up to the Top, that where she's talking about like there's like somebody who was like talking so much shit about me and my music, and then like a year later they came out with like their own music that totally stole my own sound, and I'm just like, I'm pretty sure it's Lorde. And I know that's a cold take. I feel like that's like something that like lots of people have like been like, yeah, no, it's like 100% like her. I know that there's like some theories that it's like Lady Gaga. I feel like those are like kind of less true. Some people think it's like Marina and the Diamonds, just because of like the Electra Heart era. But like I don't recall her and Marina having public beef. I feel like the only person who like really spoke out against Lana during like the early 2010s, that was in the music industry and like that like made music remotely similar to her, was like probably Lorde. Because like I'm pretty sure she said that Royals was written like exclusively like listening to Lana Del Rey and like Kanye and being like, oh yeah, like all this like opulence that they like sing or rap about is bullshit, and I'm gonna write something that's like kind of like related to that. And like they are both sort of tapping into like that like crossover between like pop and hip hop and like a little bit of like trip hop and electronic that that eventually everybody started doing anyway. But like I mean I still feel like I can kind of hear maybe some similarities, but like I still feel like their music is like different enough. At least with like when you're comparing like Pure Heroine to like, I'm assuming she's saying like you're ripping off Born to Die in Paradise because that was the sound up until that point. But like I don't think that they sound like at all. I like so that's like the only reason why I'm like wondering, is like that's the only reason why there might be doubt, but I still think it's probably Lorde, and I know like lots of other people on the internet feel that way as well. But I digress. That is just, you know, being gossipy. This is not me being. This is I'm obviously not a Lorde slander channel, nor am I a Lana slander channel. I am the child strung between a divorce between the two of them, of them just like constantly hitting each other. But I don't even think that's true anymore, though. I mean, they definitely aren't besties to my knowledge, but I feel like Lorde has kind of like outgrown that phase of the internet where she was sort of talking and like dismantling like pop stars, because like now she's like fully like, oh no, like pop music is sacred and like I love pop, and I feel like anybody who talks shit about pop that's like outside of the landscape is missing out or whatever. But yeah, I think it's like it's so interesting for me to look at the obvious success of Born to Die coming out of like a very like internet kind of origin story, where it's like I'm pretty, because like video games like the first song off of Born to Die, at least I think anyway. I swear this isn't going to be turning into like a total like biography of like her career, because I'm not qualified to do that. But I just think this is important context, that like Born to Die exists, and its like popularity exists really because of like the internet. And this type of pop star would not be able to exist without like Tumblr spaces like Tumblr, and how people are at that point in time were consuming music, especially like on an aesthetic standpoint. So crafting such a a recognizable sound and like visual aesthetic of it, like being like the, oh, like I'm drawing from like 50s 60s Americana, but I'm like fusing in elements of like hip hop and trip hop, but then like I'm like doing jazz singer stuff, but like I'm also Marilyn Monroe, I guess, I don't fucking know. um like was very unique. It definitely was not met without criticism, especially when you think of like the god awful SNL performance that we are all trying to write out of our minds. I think most of us like have it at this point, which is like kind of like all you really want uh, when you're like recovering from a catastrophically bad debut live performance on television. But I mean, like here's the thing, like it really humanized her for me though, because it's just like, girl, me too. I don't know how to like get in front of an audience and do literally anything, let alone singing. So like I feel, but but she has like such like an iconic sort of aesthetic and look around her, and like her music and sounds, and like it started like developing like on like the Paradise EP, which was like a companion for Born to Die, that eventually became like Born to Die the Paradise edition. Obviously, there is the success of Young and Beautiful for the Great Gatsby soundtrack, and there's also Once Upon a Dream for like Maleficent. So the Paradise like era ended up feeling really long, despite it being like a relatively short project overall. I mean, it was an EP, um, but it felt like a full album cycle. And I remember at like the premiere, or at like the very end of the premiere of like the Tropico short film she made that was like around the Paradise EP, she announced Ultraviolence. I'm just like, holy shit! I'm like, I'm living, I'm dying, I'm crying, I'm shitting, I'm throwing up in the club, and but like I had no idea what it was gonna sound like, and like that was kind of the brilliant part about then, like when West Coast came out, and it was so different from anything that she'd like put out. Like yes, reverb was still very much a part of her brand by that point, and there was still that sort of like lush vibe to like the chorus and just like this like explosion of sound that she's been like known for, but it like leaned a lot more into like a different era of music pretty like immediately. And I remember the morning that I first listened to it. It was like it was like right before school, and it was stuck in my head for like the entire day. I remember just like when like the music video wasn't out, so it was like only just like the audio upload was just like a looping gif of her just like spitting around on the beach. And then like she just like leans into like the falling in love with creepy old men visual that she had like sort of infamously garnered from all of like the daddy the daddy lyrics from her music before, that would like definitely be amplified like moving forward. And it's just like, to me, like, would I say it's like a super brave career move? I guess in comparison to some like others, like maybe not, but like it was still pretty, I would still say it's like a significant sea change at least, which I absolutely love. And for me, like it worked really, not only did it work really well for her, but like I would argue this is like a pretty um formative time for her after like the after the success of like um one full project and one mini project that like together like they did have like a cohesive like sound to it, for her to be like, okay, on to the next era, and like, you know, showing that like, oh, this is the kind of like artist I'm gonna be. Like I'm not gonna be the artist that makes that like sticks to like the same type of music. Granted, like she still stays very much in like her like dream pop, sleepy, like sultry like kind of vibe with like her music like on here. As far as like her vocal delivery is concerned, she's definitely not changing vibes or like the listening experience for her fans or like her audiences. Like here, like it's still very much Lana Del Rey DNA, but like it's still very it was still reassuring to know that like she was willing to try different things, because there are plenty of artists that are just like, I'm gonna sit in this pocket and be kind of known for this like one thing. And this was very much like okay, I'm gonna be trying different stuff. I'm not going to have a sophomore slump, which we love for her. And it kind of just like opened the door for like her to be doing so many other things like as well, because then Honeymoon came out and it was also very different aesthetically, and it's just, I don't know, for me it was just like it very much just like this was an important step to like let the audience, not only just like her audience know, but like also like her critics know that like she wasn't just going to do one thing. That being said though, I think another reason why I would argue that this is her most formative project out of her career thus far is because it is definitely her most controversial album cycle. I think the first thing that immediately comes to mind, I guess I should clarify actually. I'm not personally including the questions for the culture debacle and the mesh mask thing, because I think those were like probably her most frustrating controversies like as of recently, as far as like her whole career is concerned. But like I'm not attaching them to like an album cycle specifically, because it was in that weird limbo between like her saying that like Chemtrails was going to be a sister record for Norman fucking Rockwell, and then like kind of was but kind of wasn't. And so like to me it does, like those moments don't feel like they're like tied to a specific album, and because of that, that's why I'm not including them. I just want y'all to know I'm not in like the camp of I pretend I do not see it. I recognize that was like her she she really tried to do something there with being like how come these women can be like on polls, but then like when I did it in Tropico like I couldn't. But then like she's like referencing women of color who are constantly scrutinized for embracing their sexuality and for all of these things that she said that like she claimed that she created that space for them. It's like, okay girl, like I love Lana, but I'm going to go on record and be like, she is not immune to criticism. I was so upset, like not only at that first post, but then like the fact that she made 3 more posts where she just kept doubling down on it. Then she did like a video on it. God, it was a mess. It was fucking awful for all of us. And the entire time I was like, someone please take her phone away from her, dear God. And then she left social media, well, quote unquote left social media, but she still had like the Honeymoon account. It was just private. I mean, I think the Honeymoon account had always been privated up until this year. I think it just recently went like she just unprivated it so like everybody can follow. So it's essentially still having her old account. But I digress. But again, fully acknowledging those, saying that like I can't be racist because my girlfriends like have rapper boyfriends is like insanely racist. Whether she wants to admit it or not, it is not a good look for her. And I don't know, I do think her stepping away from from social media and not doing interviews for a while has like worked in her favor. But I am also like, there's some growth that needs to happen there, girl, especially with the cultural appropriation discussions that have always been circling the earlier aspects of your career, with especially with you wanting to be like with like your MO being like I'm a Lolita lost in the hood, or I'm a gangsta Nancy Sinatra. I'm like, girl, no, we don't go there. I'm a little embarrassed for you for saying that. I hate that you went on record and said that. As a Lana Del Rey fan, I'm in pain. But yeah, ignoring all of that though, because none of us could foresee during this time that she was going to add more controversies to her plate. The biggest one that comes to mind from this album cycle that ended up dominating discussions around her for like the next several years of her career, to the point where like it felt like 2010s Lana Del Rey was never going to shake this image until like she started switching things up. like pretty significantly. I would argue with like personally, I would argue with that it changed with like Honeymoon, but a lot of people were like the shift for them like began with like Lust for Life, which was like the album afterwards. Um, but definitely the anti-feminism comments were not great, especially in response to it was in response to two things. It was like one, both of them were related, I think, to the line in the title track that's like, he hit me and it felt like a kiss. And lots of people were saying that this album glamorizes abuse, that line glamorizes abuse, and then it kind of like further extends out to like all of the, like your discography, officially released discography under Lana Del Rey, like puts you in like the position of like a damsel in distress. It's like feels like it's glamorizing like toxic men and like abusive relationships. And for me, I always thought that was just like, obviously this is not excusing it. I kind of was under the impression from like the get-go that this was a bit and that it was like part of the persona of Lana Del Rey to like fit into like those like waifish stereotypes of like of like embodying like sort of like the housewife and like the Lolita and the, you know, like the whatever, and like the era that she was like drawing from. I always thought that was like kind of like maybe not like the inside joke of it, but at least like kind of the intent was like, if you're drawing from these eras, that you're going to be drawing from specific like archetypes of like women in and how they're like portrayed in media, which was like not great, and like did not reflect how women actually were. It was just sort of how they were treated. That's what I thought at the beginning. And then as soon as she started talking about it, I'm just like, okay, maybe I gave you a little bit too much credit, and I will like own up to that. Because then she's like, I'm not glamorizing abuse. I'm writing songs about my struggles and it just comes off as glamorous. That's not my fault that you're interpreting it that way. And like, okay, it's like, I can understand what you're like trying to say. And I think there is like an important distinction that like needs to be drawn with like how people are allowed to tell their stories in music, specifically women in comparison to their male peers, because there have been lots of like artists like from all genres that have like in like songwriting have discussed, you know, abuse and like being on both sides of it. And I do have to wonder how much of like the heaviness of that was like dealt towards Lana's way was related to like sort of the shift in internet culture when it came to Tumblr discourse about female artists that they didn't see as like empowering or as like positive role models, because I do feel like that the discussion was like changing with like Tumblr. Like I hate to say like stuff like social justice warrior or anything with it, because like no, a lot of these are very valid criticisms, but like people were getting very very zealous with how they were like approaching women in music in a way that they kind of perceived was like in a feminist light, but ended up being like still kind of tearing down women in a way. I was talking with my boyfriend the other night about how I know this like feels unrelated, but I swear I'm tying it back. When like after Katniss was released as a female protagonist, and like, you know, how she was like, how people received her as like aspirational, like a strong female character, how like a lot of people's immediate response was to like say something about Bella Swan within like the same sentence with Twilight, and being like, oh, these are the kinds of like women, like fictional women that our girls should look up to, and that means we have to condemn these like other female characters. And there's a whole other discussion on that I will probably talk about at some point, because I keep saying I'm going to do a Hunger Games video. But there is like a part of me that's just like, I do wonder how much of this ire was like fairly masked criticism um that was like turned into what people perceived as feminist rhetoric, if that makes any sense. I'm not defending Lana, obviously. I think most of like the critics like against that line were like like absolutely correct in being like, hey, so like this kind of songwriting can be very triggering for abuse victims. It's probably not the narrative you mean to like put out. And I think that like her initial response to it was like terrible. And like I agree with her critics like in that regard. I think there is like a way you can talk about experiencing like abuse in relationships, and like toxicity that deals with it like a little bit better. And like I'm glad that years down the line she's finally come out and been like, okay, yeah, no, I like this is why I don't perform this song anymore, or when I do I take out that line, because like she's like finally like, okay, I understand now. I don't want to like I don't want to make people relive that experience if they're like going through it. I didn't write that song to be necessarily autobiographical. It was like a little bit more metaphorical than like actual hitting, um but like I still wanted to like own up to it, and that's why I won't sing that line anymore. And I'm just like, okay, thank you. I feel like the fandom can like let out a collective sigh of relief that even though there's like a tons of other stupid shit that you've said, specifically in relation to this album cycle, one more that I will get into that was like pretty damning in my opinion. And I don't know, it's like it does help, and I'm glad that she did at least like she was eventually receptive to that criticism. I just remember being very disappointed like seeing how her initial reactions to those, instead of like coming from a place of understanding. Like I understand the urge to like defend your own art, especially if it was coming from such that like from a genuine space, which I don't doubt that it was to an extent, but like she came out and said that it wasn't like from like being physically abused, it was from being more so in like a toxic sort of situation, which like is still like, you know, it still doesn't leave out like the fact that it could be an abusive relationship. If it's the one that I'm thinking of, then like yeah, probably. You know, I don't want it to come off as me being like, if it's not physical abuse, it's not abuse. Because it's like, well, no, emotional abuse, verbal abuse, sexual abuse, all of these things, like, you know, completely possible. I'm just using her words herself, saying that it wasn't directly autobiographical, is meant more sort of like as a tell to the mindset that I was in at the time, but I recognize like how that could be hurtful and how that could be misinterpreted. So that's why I don't sing it anymore. You know, on one hand, like I do feel for victims who want to be able to write about their personal experiences through their music, and I fully support that. You just have to be kind of delicate about how you approach it, I guess, which maybe is like unfair to sort of police someone in how they channel their trauma. I don't know that there's like a really easy answer to it, I guess, and I don't think that that's like even really a place for me to like, I don't know that that's even a place that I'm in a position to speak on, if that makes any sense. I don't know. I don't want to talk out of my ass too much as like somebody who's like never been it. Thankfully, I've never been put in a position where that specificity could be related to in that way. But I think like the other major controversy that came with this album cycle, and sort of continues to this day because she actively beefs with the same critic. There is a I forgot their name. I'm such a bad historian, I'm really sorry. But she is like a journalist. I believe her pronouns are she, her. They were when the review came out. I don't know if that's changed. I just want to go on record and say that like to my knowledge, her pronouns are, or their pronouns are she, her at the time that the article was written, and from what I know now, but feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. She had written like an article that was saying that like Lana Del Rey, but this was like her review. She was basically saying that she's anti-feminist, and that this kind of music is harmful to women, and it was like part of like her negative review for Ultraviolence, which I think this is like her first the inception of her beef with this critic, like this music journalist, started with Ultraviolence, but I could be wrong. If it like happened with Born to Die or Paradise, I guess I'll find out very soon, but I'm pretty sure it started with Ultraviolence, and then ever since then, there's like always been like a back and forth between her and this person like on Twitter, like in response to it, because Lana's response to Ultraviolence being slammed as anti-feminist was like, "I'm not interested in feminism. I think feminism is boring and it doesn't relate to women like me, and I'm more interested in like space and stuff." Which is certainly like a response. I mean, here's the thing, like nobody's forcing you to be like a feminist, I guess. Like God knows there are plenty of men that aren't feminists, um but it does like scream a little like pick me, I guess. But it's also just fundamentally like a misunderstanding of like what feminism is, which what I imagine is that like I think the reason why she for a long time did not align with feminist spaces like within her own personal life, and how that's changed over the years, at least up until the question for the culture thing, which is like at that point that's when again she like sort of buckled down on like her old problematic side and was just like, I'm not a feminist. Which again, nobody's forcing you to be a feminist. There are plenty of men, women, and non-binary people that are not and are capable of saying terrible things, and there are also people who aren't feminists that like don't do anything really about it. You decide of whether that's a good or bad thing, but it's like I the impression that I get is that the feminist spaces that she was aware of for a while and might still only really have a perception of are either just like not, I don't know how I want to put this. I'm trying to be very like sensitive with this, because like I do think it is a combination of her misinterpreting that like feminism does create and does provide a space for like women who like do want to be more domestic and do want to be homemakers and do place more value on like relationships. Like there is a place in feminism like for them, but I think that there are like a lot of spaces where it doesn't seem like that case, in that like you wanting to be like a homemaker or a housewife or whatever is like seen as like a betrayal to your gender, and that you're like a slave to the patriarchy if you feel that way. Like there are definitely spaces that like very loudly like, you know, scream that from the hills, and that like stays as their platform. And to me, like that, to me personally, that's not what feminism is. Feminism is about choice, and it's about not having to conform to to those expectations of like having to be a homemaker. It's like if you're a homemaker, it's because it is a choice of like your own volition, and that is like something that you want to do, and that there's no right or wrong way to be a woman, you know. But I feel I don't know, I just get the idea that like like the feminists that she was introduced to are just like sort of like white feminists or TERFs that are like very very adamant about certain positions that might be like off-putting. I don't want to remove all of like the agency out of Lana being anti-feminist, because like I'm sure there's also just like there is like a part of her that like is just that way. But I don't know, it's still like a thing that I like to posit of like, you know, is it because the misinterpretation, in my opinion, of like feminist ideologies in the early 2010s, when it came to like internet cultures, that were a lot of people were starting to exchange information with each other, and were like and there was like lots of like radical feminists like mindsets that were being sort of played telephone with online, to where a lot of people just kind of like say whatever they thought they read, or they just don't have a very inclusive view on feminism. Which, by the way, if like if your definition of like feminism doesn't include trans women or women of color or disabled women, then like you're that's not feminism. Like that is objectively not feminism, and you suck. um, but I digress. The story of Lana, the warrior against against feminism, rages on, I suppose. I kind of hoped that, like, you know, with her involvement with as like projects went on with definitely in Lust for Life, when she was having more I mean, she had like a collab with like Stevie Nicks, and it seemed like they were having more productive discussions on like women's rights, and she was very vocal about, you know, her disdain for Donald Trump, and how fear of like, you know, reproductive rights being taken away, and like women being oppressed like under this like presidency sort of like, you know, engaged her in like the more political side of things, and like started making her rethink different preconceptions that she had about feminism. But she never explicitly ever said that she was like a feminist. She just said that things were changing. But in my mind, I was just like, okay, yes, we're, you know, we're out of the darkness, we're going into we're going into like a better spot with you, and I can like not be embarrassed to like claim you as a fave. Like, I mean, I claim you as a problematic fave, but like, can I just claim you as a fave? And then the question for the question for the culture came out, and I'm like, no shit, fuck. Will I still be listening? Yes, of course. But but dear God, has it been emotionally taxing to be a Lana Del Rey fan for the past almost decade? Actually, no, I think it is a decade at this point. Born to Die came out in 2012. The video games came out in 2011, and then like obviously she'd been releasing music long up until that point, just like under a million different stage names, which I can relate to. But yeah, I think because of that, like as far as like the mainstream was concerned, like this was the album that like sort of threw her into the spotlight as like a difficult artist in that way, as far in like the critical sphere. But like in like the audience sphere, and like how like, you know, music internet was like sort of functioning, and just like I saw so many people inspired by the visuals of this era, and kind of, I mean, like just from like Lana in general. It's like whenever I see like if someone is like designing like a room or whatever, like in a show, or like maybe it's like even in like fan art, and they're doing like a hipster girls like bedroom or something, and they have like vinyls on the wall, it's almost always like either Born to Die or Ultraviolence is like parodied or just directly referenced like in that show. Like it is just that album, or those are just those albums for her. They're like super recognizable projects for a reason, and like there's I think because of that, it's like it's hard for me to like imagine a modern day Lana that like would have like existed if like we didn't have the rockiness of the Ultraviolence era, if that makes any sense. I feel like yeah, sorry, I'm getting I know, super professional me checking my messages like in the middle of a sentence. I don't know, it's like I personally just, I mean, I can't say like enough good things like about this album. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea. I know it is like a very like sleepy and like I can say sleepy, but I know for some people they like relate it to like, oh, her singing is like she's like drunk driving and she's slurring her words. I'm just like, okay, that's fair. She's definitely like drawing a lot of like Mazzy Stark, I think it's Mazzy Star, comparisons with like her vocal delivery, and like her Stevie Nicks inspiration is like very clear on a lot of the tracks, especially on West Coast, where it's like literally just Edge of 17 in like the chorus. But I don't know, I just like absolutely love this album. I desperately want, like, honestly, anytime she like remotely hints that like, oh, this song is like kind of Ultraviolence, but like maybe like a little bit beachier, is like modernized, and I'm just like, oh my god, that means I'm gonna love it. I know that's how she described a couple songs off of Norman fucking Rockwell ahead of time, and there was like a it was like a thread that was like thrown around for a while. They're just like, oh my god, like you know when we're like all theorizing what the album's gonna sound like, they're just like, oh, it's like Ultraviolence but beachy, um, which it like wasn't really. I still love it, but like you know whoever started that rumor is not seeing the pearly gates, um, for building up those expectations like that. But I mean I don't know y'all. Um, that being said, it is interesting with like the release of Blue Banisters, where a lot of songs were from like older, um, well they were like older songs from like her career, you know, because when you write as many songs as like most artists do in like the modern day, you know, there's gonna be plenty that don't make the final record, and for Ultraviolence, I definitely have my fave like unreleased tracks from that era. Um, I think I'm pretty sure Fine China is from Ultraviolence era. I could be wrong though, but I know the Blue Banisters has like a lot of like um a lot of the material like is from that era. I'm pretty sure Barry O'Neill like soft confirmed at least a few of them being from Ultraviolence, and I know a lot of Ultraviolence like was like sort of written about him, which I think was also, I think at the very least it was like soft confirmed by him. I don't think she ever explicitly said this was about my relationship with him. I just know that like he said like I gave her, yeah, I feel like I feel bad for her because like I gave her a lot of grief in our relationship. I was like struggling with like a lot of drugs and being like emotionally available, and like I was definitely not a good partner. And then like a lot of Ultraviolence like is about like being with somebody who's like on a lot of drugs and is like dealing with lots of substance issues and is having a hard time being a present partner. And it's just like on top of all of that there's like also like there's also abuse, I guess. I shouldn't laugh at that, abuse isn't funny. But yeah, seeing the material off of Blue Banisters that I'm fairly certain was from that era is very interesting to me. It makes me wonder if like we'll ever get Fine China on a future album. Like if we ever get like an official 2022 or just 2020s um release of like Fine China, or even like even if it's like Frankenstein into like other songs, I will be very happy because that is like it's probably my favorite unreleased Lana song next to I mean this is very basic for me to say, but like I feel like we all love Serial Killer. If you're a Lana fan, you probably love Serial Killer, even if you won't admit it. It is a good ass song. Um, but I don't know. It's like I mean I'm interested to hear what the next project sounds like. If it's like um it doesn't sound like there's going to be a lot of older material on it, which I'm happy about because that was a quality that made me feel kind of mixed about Blue Banisters, was that it like featured so much stuff from like the older catalog. And not that there's anything wrong with that, because I you know I fully support songs being rehomed on projects that are more um I don't want to say relevant. But I mean, like maybe they're just like a better home for them than like Ultraviolence, you know. And I fully support artists doing that, especially if that's a song that they love, but they just were never able to fit in on project. Um, but the latter half of Blue Banisters really fell into that trap for me, where it just felt like it's like, oh yeah, this is very much not a modern Lana that we know. And as much as I love obviously returning to like her older catalog, um it's like you do recognize like as a songwriter that like she is like at a different point of like her career and of her growth, and because of that it's gonna be like, you know, going back in time like has its like charm to it when you're listening to those albums, but when you're releasing it as new music but it's like your songwriting chops from like 8 years ago, to me that makes it like, knowing that it's not like current and that it's like not sort of the, I don't want to say approved version of you, but like almost kind of I don't know. It can feel like a little bit weird. I know some people say that like Blue Banisters was lazy because of how much old content it like not recycled, but like, upcycled, we'll say. I personally don't think it's lazy. I'm glad that like I don't feel like any of the songs that are on Blue Banisters feel like they don't belong there. It just makes me feel like I'm ready for like the next project and I'm ready for it to be all original stuff. I'm sure there'll be like one or two songs that are like coming from a previous era. I'm trying to think of which ones I'm manifesting from older projects to come onto the new one. I guess it would probably have to be from like, considering it's supposed to follow the sort of lighter and like the lighter sound of like Arcadia and like Blue Banisters, like the song, and because she's like working with like the same producers, where it's like it is like a little bit of like return to the orchestral sounds, but like definitely not in like the same grandiose way of like her first projects, because it's like it has the restraint of like a modern day Lana when it comes to like her songwriting, her vocal delivery. So when I think about that being like the main focus of the new album, and like the sound being influenced by having the same producers for that project, it makes me feel like she can't go further back than like any of the Jack Antonoff albums without it sounding kind of weird. Like I have a hard time believing that I'm gonna find like a Born to Die cut off of like the new album, but I could be wrong. I mean, we haven't even heard anything from like the new project, like the upcoming project. So like who knows what it could be. I don't fucking know. I know that she had like was it Vogue? I know she had like an interview and like a photo shoot that I like sort of skimmed through a while ago, but I probably need to like do like a serious read through at some point. That said, there is new music coming soon, and that it was sort of stream of consciousness writing of just like her like opening up her voice notes app in the morning and just like singing random shit and then like putting it down. I'm just like, oh my god, she's just like me for real. But if it's gonna be that case, I'm just like, I'm excited, but then I'm also scared of like, what if we get like any of like the haikus, like the energy that the haikus from Violet Bent Backwards Over the Grass like has, like, and we're gonna get like Grenadine Quarantine energy on this new project, because I kind of need her to outgrow that a little bit. Like I appreciate like her dipping into other aspects of writing, and that she does consider herself like a writer and like a poet first, and I love that for her. I love her exploring other creative avenues, but we need a little bit more than Grenadine Quarantine. That being said, I did like that poetry collection. It's but it's like maybe a step or two above like Milk and Honey, but it's definitely not like on the shelf with like some of the greats, I would say. It could grow on me though. I do like the audio. I think the audiobook format where like it's her narrating it, but like it has like Jack Antonoff's like music behind it, was the best way to present that project. And I kind of wish the audiobook featured more of the poems on it and that it was just longer, because it's only like a couple excerpts from it, which I have on Audible. That was my free book from like all of like the ads you get from YouTubers about like sign up today for your free audiobook. Like that was the one I picked. Because I'm basic. I mean, I think that's kind of the main thing you can gather from me talking about this for like almost an hour and a half now, is that like I am a basic Tumblr gay. I own up to it. I accept this. And I will not be taking further questions. There are definitely arguments to be made about like, okay, like do you think there's like an element of Stockholm syndrome at this point, that you've been like attached to an artist that is so so known for saying not so great things, for the very few times that she does do interviews? Because I think I know like a thing that whether it's an active decision from the beginning on her part, or if it's her team, or if it's just sort of like what ended up happening. um I think a thing that makes artists like Lana, and I would say The Weeknd for a little while, but that's been changing. What makes them so unique is like them not doing a lot of interviews, and them like kind of not disclosing a lot of details about their private life. So then like the music can kind of take on a life of its own, and it's up to you whether or not to believe that like, oh, does this album have tea on it, or is it just like, is it just a vibe? Like, is it just like a bunch of cute little fucking lies like soaked in reverb? Who knows? Maybe it's better not to know. I know that like sometimes it is fun to be able to tie real life drama to like somebody's music, but like at the end of the day, it's like you do have to remember that these are like all real people, and that you shouldn't like, if there's like even like a link, like a remote link to like a real person that you can like find in a song, like obviously it is insane to go like harass this person because like your internet theory of like dissecting these lyrics because you went on Genius and somebody in the comment section said this. Like, you do not have a right to cyberbully or harass like a person for maybe tangentially be related to what the song could be talking about. And even then that could be like a stretch, you know, like unless someone explicitly says like, for example, like if I say fuck Donald Trump on a song, they're just like, okay, I'll you know, I own that, you know, there's no other way to interpret it, right? But if I'm just like vaguely talking about like an ex, like you obviously you would not go through any of my socials to like try to find hints here and there, because I like to assume that my audience is well adjusted. But I think stan culture stan culture is scary. um and it's like fucking weird. I don't know. And I feel like God, when I think of I feel so bad for artists like Lana and celebrities in general though, but like the ones that have like infamously had like a lot of break-ins to their home and have had things stolen, and have had like fans sort of, if they like have stalkers. I know obviously she's not, I mean sadly she's not the only celebrity that's had like stalkers or had people break into their homes, but like the amount of times that like people have like broken into her home and stolen hard drives. Like I know that was a reason why Violet Bent Backwards Over the Grass got like delayed, was because somebody like stole her hard drive that like not only had stuff related to the book on it, but it was also like family photos. I'm just like, oh my god, this is why I could never be a celebrity. And like I mean like I have for anyone who doesn't know me personally, I have like a massive fear of like home invasion. It's literally my biggest fear. I guess next to spiders, I guess spiders and heights. Spiders, heights, and home break-ins are like my biggest fears. So the idea that somebody who's like convinced that they're like my biggest fan ever breaks into my home and like sniffs my underwear or some shit is like, that's like a lot for me to try to wrap my head around it. Like this is a thing that like she's talked about even like in her music. I'm just like, holy shit. Like I don't know what's wrong with people thinking that just because you connect with them parasocially through a song, that means that you have like the right to act like you're besties with somebody, and that you like, oh, you understand me better than anyone else, and I know what's best for you as like your fan, like your number one fan. And I don't know. And then on top of that, just like all of the leaks, I kind of briefly talked about leaks earlier, but like I would feel so violated if like something that I thought was like very well protected like on like a server or something. I mean, I think most people know now and like not to do that, to like not trust the cloud if you're if you're a celebrity or if you're like a big name musician, is like not trust the cloud, and that you have to be, honest at this point, you have to be Beyonce and like have like hard drives be protected in like bulletproof cases, and and like make them like impossible to break into and impossible to like leak anything and clear the perimeter for like a 30-mile radius or some shit. I don't fucking know. Because the idea of like anybody finding any of my shitty demos on my laptop or on my hard drive is like terrifying to me. I can only imagine what it's like for like people who like, it's not only their music that's being leaked, but it's like their personal photos and conversations and shit. That's like, that's a yikes. Like that's, I don't know, that's hard for me to even try to fathom as like somebody who like maybe foolishly still believes in the existence of privacy in the modern age, but I'd like to think that I have some, and that the only one who's like really monitoring my shit is like maybe like the NSA or whatever. That was a completely unrelated tangent. Like, oh my god. Um, all right, so I'm seeing that we're at the hour and 32-minute mark. I'm not sure what it's going to be when I like edit this down later. It probably will be less than that because I'll probably trim off the intro a bit, or at least like the starting soon. Like I said, I'm splitting this into two parts. I mean, it's one stream, but it's going to be split into two parts because we're going to be doing the not cast in a second. That's when we're going to be just kind of talking about whatever. Probably going to be talking about Miss Marvel, early impressions with that, just because I'm going to wait to do a full video on it for like when the season is done. This just kind of felt like a way for me to like get out my thoughts, for now anyway, until like I can get like a better idea. But mostly it's also just because like the reason why I like the notcast is because I don't have to like I don't have to prepare much. I can just like talk about whatever. Whereas like with this, I'm like, okay, I have to like go in through with like an outline and prepare shit, and it's very stressful for my two brain cells. But if you're watching this on YouTube, you know, you can find it in like the separate playlist or whatever. It's going to be attached. I might even link it to in like the description of this video. It's just going to be a fun little two-parter, I guess. But as far as the main topic is concerned, those are all of my very long-winded thoughts about Ultraviolence. Happy 8th birthday, kind of belated because it was Monday, but I couldn't stream because I had no water. And also, you're welcome for being such a dedicated but very misguided stan that has had to defend you on the internet for years. I'm just joking. I'm usually with y'all with the torches. I swear, if we get I don't know if that I can survive another question for the culture cringe post, but I digress. If you like this, and you're watching this in the future, I stream on twitch.tv/GWRLNextDoor podcast at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Mondays, Thursdays, and sometimes Fridays. Come through, follow, join the chat. I was about to say don't talk about your age, but that seems mean. I know that they didn't mean like anything bad about it like earlier, and I'm hoping I didn't make them uncomfortable by setting those like ground rules, but I mean that's a whole other discussion entirely. Thank you for coming through, for those who did, and joining in the discussion. I really appreciate it. I have no idea what I will be streaming on Monday. At this point, I'm like scared to promise anything because I thought I was going to be streaming this Monday as well, and then like I had the whole water thing. So I couldn't. But let's say hypothetically, I am streaming on Monday. I will tweet out I'll tweet out something over the weekend that like might have an idea of what I'm gonna do. But until then, I hope y'all have, I guess, a good weekend because it's Thursday. I'll catch y'all soon. Bye.